This is Wasp. Some may even know her name, Janet Van Dyne. Ah, from what you're seeing here, you're probably asking, isn't that Hope Pym, her daughter? I'd say in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it is, but I'm going to tell you about how the Wasp came to be and her story. Now sit back and listen to the origins of the Wasp. Janet Van Dyne was born in Cresskill, New Jersey. Her father was Vernon Van Dyne. He was a scientist that worked with Hank Pym, also known as Ant-Man. During one of Vernon's experiments, he was killed by an alien entity named Peli. Janet turned to Hank for help in avenging her father. Janet's passion and drive convinced Pym to help her. He conducted a biochemical procedure that granted her the ability to grow wings when she shrinks her size. In the beginning, she depended upon Hank's Pym particles to change her size. Together, Wasp and Ant-Man defeated Peli, avenging her father. Janet decided to remain as Wasp and be Hank's partner as she had fallen in love with him. Hank, however, initially rejected Janet's advances due to the similarities between herself and his first wife, Maria. During her time as Ant-Man's partner, she took part in numerous conflicts with villains including Porcupine, Egghead, and Whirlwind. Starting out, she didn't have any offensive abilities and relied on her resourcefulness. She communicated with insects and poked people with a pin for a weapon, believe it or not. Later, the Wasp's stings developed to allow her to shoot from a distance. After the initial confrontation with Loki that brought together the founding Avengers, Hank and Janet proposed forming a team of superheroes. Wasp actually came up with the name for this team and became a founding member. This team was known as the Avengers. That's right, it was not Captain America or Iron Man. Wasp was actually the originator for the Avengers team. She didn't ever lack confidence or bravery, and by nature had an outgoing personality. She always felt the need to be in the thick of battles with villains, including Norse gods and aliens alike, despite being one of the weaker members of the team. Frequently, Janet attempted to make Hank jealous by making remarks on how attractive members of the team were, especially Thor. All she wanted was for him to commit to a relationship. Early on in her Avengers career, she was injured by a stray bullet in a battle against Count Nefaria and nearly died from a collapsed lung. She left the team not too long after that, which is something that we'll see her do a lot. She comes back eventually, but returns stronger than ever. She no longer required Pym particles to change her size, nor did she need the original stingers that was designed for her. The particles mutated her and allow her to change her size at will and generate enough bioelectricity to shoot a sting from her hands. Janet on several occasions hoped that her long-term boyfriend Hank would propose. Their relationship does not move forward to that point until something more dramatic happens, though. The new vigilante Yellow Jacket breaks into the Avengers mansion, demands to be admitted as a member of the team, claims to have killed Hank Pym, and then kidnaps Janet. Not believing that Yellow Jacket was Hank's killer, she attempts to find where Yellow Jacket is holding Hank, but instead determines that Yellow Jacket is in fact her boyfriend. Before revealing this, and during the period in which Yellow Jacket still believes himself to have killed Hank, Janet marries Hank, though the wedding is disrupted by an attack from the Circus of Crime. During the fight, it is revealed that Yellow Jacket is Pym. In the 1970s, after another departure from the team, Janet Van Dyne returns briefly and becomes a member of the original Liberators. Before once more relieving the team, she becomes temporarily trapped at Insect Size and battles Whirlwind, Paraman, and Dr. Nemesis. She also battles Equinox alongside Spider-Man and Yellow Jacket. During this time, her powers are augmented to allow her to harness her body's bioelectrical current and fire blasts of energy, which she calls her Wasp's stings. During one of her breaks from active Avengers duty, Janet approaches the team with concerns about her husband having suffered a breakdown and attacked her former teammates. In attempting to find a way to help Hank, she is captured by a brainwashed Hank and used by Ultron as a template to create Jocasta. She is rescued when Jocasta alerts the Avengers to her location, and Black Panther suggests that the AI's ability to reach out to them was brought about because of Janet's personality breaking through. In the 1980s, Janet Van Dyne discovers that her husband, now paranoid, overbearing, and verbally abusive, has concocted a plan to make himself look good in front of the Avengers by staging an attack that only can be stopped by the instigator. When she attempts to dissuade him, Hank strikes her, she divorces him soon after, and takes a very brief break from the team yet again. When Janet returns to the Avengers, she proposes that the team is in need of new leadership and nominates herself for the role of chairperson. She's elected to the position by Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America. Janet takes to the role naturally, proving to be an efficient, smart leader who is praised by Captain America for her leadership skills. She makes it a point to increase the number of women on the team and recruits She-Hulk and Captain Marvel. At the same time as taking on the leadership of the team, Janet begins to work in earnest as a professional fashion designer. Part of her friendship with She-Hulk includes designing new clothes for her. She also renews her social life, engaging in a whirlwind romance with Tony Stark before learning that the billionaire is Iron Man. She breaks off the relationship, saying that she cannot date a colleague who is also a friend of her ex-husband. Later, she has a relationship with Paladin, though they are often apart due to their jobs. Janet briefly hands leadership of the team off to Vision. Though he soon leaves the team and returns the position to her, the new team lineup proves difficult, and Janet clashes with Hercules, taking issue with a woman leading. It is during the time that she meets the Space Phantom for the second time and defeats the villain during the first Secret War. Despite being the official leader of the Avengers gathered by the Beyonder, Janet nominates Captain America for leadership of the assembled heroes as the non-Avengers present know him better. As the conflict unfolds, Janet is briefly captured by Magneto, but she turns the situation to her advantage by pretending to be seduced. She learns Magneto's plans and then defeats him before leaving to alert the Avengers. She is shortly afterwards killed by the Wrecking Crew, but resurrected by the alien healer Zasagi. During the Under Siege storyline, Janet leads the team during a time where they are attacked from all sides. She defeats Titania and the Absorbing Man, then leads a team against Baron Zemo's forces. Then leads a team against Baron Zemo's forces to rescue Captain America, the Black Knight, and other team members who have been captured. Shortly after the resolution of the story, she steps down from her leadership once more, succeeded by Captain Marvel in that position. After leaving the team, she battles the threat of Red Ronin by herself. She later joins the West Coast Avengers. Initially, she still acts as though she's the team lead, to the chagrin of other West Coast Avengers who desire that role. During this time, she resumes a romantic relationship with Hank. Although she is elected as a regular member of the Avengers West, Janet chooses to become a reserve member. 1990s. Several years later, Janet Van Dyne returns to the Avengers, first at a reserve status and later a full-time member of the team. During the Destiny War, Wasp of the present becomes the leader of the team known as the Avengers, assembled from different time periods, cited as being chosen due to her inner strength and flexibility to give the team direction without exerting too much control. After the Destiny War, Janet returns to work with the Avengers once more, taking up leadership of the team and commanding the team through a number of conflicts, including King the Conqueror's invasion of Earth. 2000s. Janet Van Dyne once more takes up leadership of the Avengers and continues to make sure there is a strong female presence on the team. Under her leadership, the number of women on the team outnumbered the number of men. Though her relationship with Hank Pym remains strong for some time, she turns down his proposal of remarrying, saying she would never marry him again. During the Lionheart of Avalon storyline, Janet is shown fighting the Wrecking Crew while at giant size, a power she had rarely, if ever, used prior. She is shown to be powerful enough at this size to take down a jet. She has a brief fling with fellow member known as Hawkeye. The JLA Avengers. Janet Van Dyne is shown as a member of the Avengers and aids them during the battle with Starro. She also gives Iron Man the idea to create Dimensional Alarm and rallies other Avengers to defend the artifacts. After the final battle in the Savage Land against the Justice League, Janet ends up as an Avenger in the new merged world that the villain Krona created and is unaware of the changes. In this world, she and Hank are good friends with Elongated Man and his wife, Sue Dibney. When the two teams decide to team up against Krona, the Wasps fights alongside the Avengers until the battle is over. Avengers disassembled. While discussing her fling with Hawkeye with the Scarlet Witch, a slightly tipsy Wasp confesses to a pregnancy scare and inadvertently mentions Wanda Maximoff's own children, whose unnatural existence Agatha Harkness has erased from the witch's memory. Wasp's slip of the tongue, combined with Scarlet Witch's increasingly unstable and growing powers, cause Wanda to suffer a mental breakdown, which leads to the events of Avengers Disassembled. Janet is knocked into a coma by a rampaging She-Hulk during an attack on Avengers Mansion by the Scarlet Witch. Hank Pym watches over her in the hospital, and when she recovers, they reconcile. The two retire from the Avengers to pursue a new life together in Oxford. Beyond. Janet Van Dyne is pulled into space and placed in a situation where she is expected to fight to the death with other heroes and villains. Instead of following the wishes of the stranger, who they thought to be the Beyonder, Janet falls into the leadership position for the group, giving tactical orders in battle and calling upon her years of experience with the Avengers to handle the threats thrown at them. After tension between her and her ex-husband, Janet explains to Medusa why she can't reconcile with Hank, despite an attempt to do so while in London. Upon learning that the Space Phantom has taken on the form of Spider-Man, Janet leads the group and keeps one of them from being trapped in limbo when the Space Phantom attempts to take the person's form. Civil War. During the superhuman Civil War, Janet Van Dyne is pro-registration and suggests that they push forward the 50-state initiative to get things under control after Thor clone kills Bill Foster, an event which upsets her greatly. She also becomes the host of a pro-registration reality TV show called America's Newest Superhero, The Mighty Avengers. Janet Van Dyne is selected as a member of the Mighty Avengers by Carol Danvers and Tony Stark as part of the 50 States Initiative. During its attempt to destroy humanity, she correctly determines that Ultron has taken over Iron Man's body. When alien symbiotes attack New York, Janet uses a refined growth formula given to her by Hank, who is actually a Skrull imposter, which allows her to shift to giant size without the side effects. During the beginning of the fight, she is briefly turned into a symbiote monster before a cure is created by Stark. Secret Invasion. Janet Van Dyne is among the Mighty Avengers who are fighting heroes from the Skrull ship. She's later seen with the rest of the Avengers heading to New York to confront the Skrulls. While fighting the Skrulls, the true purpose of the serum that the Skrull Hank Pym has given her is revealed. After Queen Veranke is thought to be dead, the Skrull imposter presses a button that makes Janet increase in size rapidly, as well as cause her to emit lethal amounts of black-purple energy. Janet realizes that the new particles Pym had given her are turning her into a biobomb, and she tries to flee the battlefield and take as many Skrulls with her as possible when she explodes. To save both the city and the heroes, Thor uses his enchanted hammer Mjolnir to create a spatial warp to seemingly disperse Janet into nothingness. Thor is devastated by the act and vows to avenge her. Upon accepting Janet's death, Hank Pym takes up his ex-wife's role as the Wasp. 2010s. Following the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline, it is revealed that Janet isn't actually dead, but has been shrunken down into a microverse by Thor's spatial warp in the same spot that she appeared to have died in Secret Invasion. Using her Avengers communication card, she's able to send a signal with help from a local being called Krusani. Giant Man, Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man go into the microverse to rescue her and find her alive and fighting against an evil despot, Lord Gowser, who has conquered the microverse. After defeating Lord Gowser and liberating the microverse from his tyranny, Janet and her fellow Avengers return to their normal universe. Following a brief hiatus, Janet returns to the team as a member of the Avengers Unity Squad. In addition to serving on the roster, she privately funds the team to avoid the problems that would come with government sponsorship. During the events of Inhumanity, Janet returns to the microverse to rescue a family who has been pulled there through a newly awakened Inhuman's power. There she confronts Gowser once more, before returning to normal space. In the Avengers Unity Squad's fight with the Horsemen of Death, the Wasp defeats both the resurrected Banshee and Sentry, using both her ability to grow to giant size as well as her ability to control insects. After the team is defeated and the Earth is destroyed, Wasp is the last surviving human and begins a romance with Havoc, with whom she has a daughter named Katie. Years later on Planet X, she is captured when she and Havoc destroy a tachyon dam, preventing time travel to their era. They are able to undo the destruction of Earth by forming an alliance with Kang and projecting their minds back into their past selves. But Kang takes their daughter to a place outside of time to protect her from the changes in history. Kang subsequently attempts to use Katie as a hostage to force Havoc to stop attacking him when he tries to take the celestial power for himself, departing with Katie as a prisoner. Although Alex is left disfigured after the battle, he and Janet remain together. They are contacted by Immortus, informing them that Immortus can return their daughter to them if they take action at the right time and place to conceive her. I'd like to go ahead and take a moment to ask y'all to hit that like button and subscribe if you aren't already. And for any suggestions or comments or people you'd like to see in future videos, go ahead and comment down below. I'd love to see what all you guys are interested in. We can do any characters from Marvel to DC. Just let me know and I'll happily go from there. Now let's go and get back to the story. But he also warns them about the imminent threat posed by the Red Skull. After the Red Skull's action caused all superheroes and villains present at his feet to undergo a moral inversion, Alex attempts to argue for Janet's life as the X-Men prepare to detonate a gene bomb that will destroy all non-mutants in the blast radius, but accepts the decision nevertheless. After Carnage sacrifices himself to contain the blast, Alex attempts to take credit for it, but Janet sees through the deception. Although the inversion is undone, the two separate for good when Alex is one of the three characters to remain in their new state. As part of the all-new, all-different Marvel, Wasp confronts Wolverine, X-23, and her clones called the Sisters when they try to steal an Ant-Man suit. Wolverine explains what they are doing, so Wasp agrees to shrink down and destroy the nanites in Zelda's body. While Wasp and Wolverine made their way through Zelda's body, Captain Mooney of Alchemax Genetic shows up and shoots Zelda, causing Wasp and Wolverine to exit the body. The two of them knock out Captain Mooney. Wasp later caught up with the Uncanny Avengers and confronts Ultron Pym after helping to fend off the monsters in the subway. When Wasp asked Ultron Pym about recent events, she figured out that Ultron is in control of Hank when Ultron guessed wrong. The rest of the Uncanny Avengers were informed of this, causing Cable to pressure Hank enough for Ultron to go on the attack and reveal his true self. Janet was called by Tony Stark to help him analyze the brainwaves of Jocasta, since they were based on Janet herself. After finding the data, they went on a date and rekindled their past relationship after fending off malfunctioning robots attacking Stark Unlimited. Wasp later helps defeat the Controller after he took over the virtual reality Escape and empowered various criminals throughout the city, and also directly aids Iron Man in subduing the supervillain Pseudorang. During the Ultron Agenda arc, Wasp and Iron Man are suddenly attacked by a fusion of Vision and Wonder Man created by Ultron, who is trying to kidnap her. While Iron Man fends off the fusion, Wasp is found and captured by a brainwashed Jarvis and is taken to Ultron's base, who reveals to her he is now fused with her ex-husband Hank Pym. Ultron later has Jocasta captured as well and reveals he is planning to combine both Jan and Jocasta in the same body the same way he did with Pym, therefore creating his perfect wife. He is found by Iron Man and Machine Man before he activates his procedure and causes him to have a mental breakdown through continued taunting. Ultron activates his machine, but both Jan and Jocasta are saved by Iron Man, who is fused with his armor in the process. Dr. Shapiro finds a way to revert Iron Man's condition, but Ultron sends a miniature version of himself to infiltrate Iron Man's body, who's engaged by Wasp, gaining enough time for Iron Man to expel everything from his body and return to normal. Wasp later finds help and fends off an enraged Ultron, who's trying to kill everyone with his army of machine-fused humans. Iron Man uses his newly developed technology to separate the robotic parts from the organic ones to stop Ultron's army and scare him off. Janet attempts to comfort Tony after he finds out he is actually an AI before he flies away. As time passed, Janet witnessed the supposed death of Hank Pym and the arrival of his unknown daughter, Nadia, who eventually took over the mantle and the motif as Wasp from Van Dyne, and she gave her full blessing and approval. Overall, I'd say I learned a lot about Wasp while looking into her. I hope you all enjoyed what you watched. Please go ahead, if you're interested in learning about one of these other characters, go ahead and click on the next video, and I'll see you in the next one.